Here we are at the final leg of our journey through Season 4. It's Voyager, Please, A Hateful Voyage through the Delta Quadrant. My name is Joseph.
And I'm your co-host, Peter.
And at last, it feels like we started Season 4 ages ago.
Yeah, this is what, episode 102 for us now?
Yeah.
I had to cross into a new notebook, so it's hard for me to leaf back through our old stuff, but it's been a long fucking time, man. Like, looking back, we got Scorpion 2, Day of Honor, Nemesis, Revulsion. Like, this feels like so long ago. The 6 or whatever weeks we spent mucking around in Picard certainly took its toll, and Picard just had its season series finale, which I have not watched yet. We're gonna do our live season 4 rip next week, I think, right?
Yep, that's the plan. So you'll hear our thoughts on the season 4 finale here shortly. Next week, we're gonna do a live broadcast via Twitch to do our season 4 rip per tradition, and then we'll upload that as our episode. The rip will be on Tuesday at 9 o'clock Eastern time. If you want to join us live, we'll post everywhere where you can find us. And then the episode will go up on all of our podcast feeds as our regularly scheduled installment for that week. And then we'll start it on season 5 after that. And during the season 4 rip, we'll also drive a fucking stake into the heart of Picard once and for all. I fucking watched the finale. I was mad about it all day, of course. I just went out to the trauma support group and just was like, I need help, please. I'm going to talk about how much I hate this. Some people obliged me, and I'm very grateful to them.
That's what it's there for, man. It's a trauma support group in the truest sense of the word. We thought it was going to be there to support defeating world-crushing Voyager episodes, but it was actually fucking TNG rejects that require the most love and hugs.
I just looked up because I was curious based on talking about how long ago it was. We started season 4 back at the end of July. And here we are at the end of March.
What a different world, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't help that, like, I feel like all of us have lived a decade in the last 3 weeks. I mean, it's March 26, 2020 when we're recording this, and Jesus, I can't wait to be able to look back at this time and say, boy, that happened.
Man, you remember coronavirus? You remember COVID-19? That was crazy.
It was.
Remember when they could get toilet paper at any store in the entire United States? That was just...
Yeah, can we reflect a moment on how weird that is? Like, I could go into a store and they've got everything. Like, the momentary panic buying for essentially everything is over, except for toilet paper. That's still the thing you can't fucking find.
I'm a big Aldi fan. Between Aldi and Costco, that's where I do most of my shopping. And I went to the store today, and it was the first time I'd really been in with, like, everything was restocked, minus the toilet paper. And I will tell you that as an American, and my boss grew up in Soviet Russia, so he's got some, like, super duper interesting stories about life growing up there. You want to hear some crazy shit, man. He'll tell you some crazy shit. But he's like, it's very interesting because I grew up seeing nothing but barren, empty shelves, and seeing it in America and seeing how Americans react to it. It's very interesting. I'm like, absolutely. It's very hard, short of like toy stores around, Black Friday. You don't see empty shelves in the US, and it's been very unnerving and different and unwelcome to have that sensation. And walking into a store that's actually fully shelved has been oddly calming and soothing. But it has been just fucking craziness. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to look back when we're on season 5, episode 26, and see where the world is then. I really appreciate the way we've been watching Voyager. Like, we are not watching Voyager the way it was initially designed to be consumed, because we have access. We can pause things. We can rewind. We can fast forward. We can nitpick in almost high def. And we're not having to suffering entire dormant seasons between cliffhangers and stuff, but we are somewhat preserving the spirit of the show in that or at least I'm watching this stuff for the first time 1 week at a time. And I think it allows us to savor and reflect on things similar to how audiences would have had to do when this was all purely over-the-air broadcast. And it's a
Right, and
slow trek.
that adds a level, I think, to our discussions because I have seen it all. This is all a revisit for me. Some of it a more firm memory than others. But this is fresh Trek for you. You've said that many times. It's like it was just made. As far as you're concerned, you have essentially no knowledge of it.
Absolutely. And part of that is it's a slow process. We started doing this 2 years ago ish.
2.5 years ago, yeah.
So I mean, 3 seasons, and a significant chunk out for Picard, obviously, but 3 seasons in about 2.5 years, like that's almost a real-time viewing. Like, it's pretty cool.
We are covering a lot of ground, and season 4 has been a lot of ups and downs. I'm sure we'll reflect upon this more when we do the rip. Like, had some of the best episodes we've seen. We got together and we watched the Year of Hell episodes, and they were fantastic. There were some good one shots in there. I'm a big devotee of the Space Cat Pet Cemetery episode where Neelix has to confront if like life has meaning after his near-death experience, being resurrected by Borg nanoprobes. We even punted on an episode. We didn't do an episode on Retrospect. Just took a hard pass on that one.
Well, we're getting a little into rip territory here, but I will say that I'm going to have to really do my homework, especially with that 6-week hiatus into the trench war of Picard. I'm going to have to go back and refresh myself because I think we had some very early contenders for the Weakest Shit Award, and I'm going to have to listen to some early episodes of ours and refamiliarize myself with the highs and the lows that season 4 has really brought us. But we're ending here. Season 4, episode 26, Hope and Fear.
So, as we just lamented last week, the season was dominated by a single storyline, and that storyline is 7 of 9 becoming a real girl. And we kind of got tired of it last week. We were both just like, here we are again with 7 of 9 having to deal with the same fucking trauma we feel like she's been dealing with since she took her emotional support Tuvok on her adventure to the Raven. And this is the opposite for me because I feel like this was a much better payoff for her evolution as a character. But still, it's like, I can't wait for us to get into season 5 when I know they finally tone this shit fucking down.
I have to wonder if somewhere in a how to author a television script class at some college that there's someone out there teaching a course where they're like, look at season 4 of Voyager and realize this is the wrong way to do a character arc. Like, I can't think of any way to have mishandled her more than they did, where like that would have been a really cool like tertiary plot through season 4. Is like, here's this shiny new toy that everybody wants to play with in this amazing cat suit that really shows off this physical element that she was brought in for. But here's some, pretty solid character development in the background, instead of it being like the main thrust of season 4 is can Annika get her groove on? Like, we harp on it a lot because that's pretty much all that we've seen. And I will agree that this, out of all, there might have been 1 or 2 other episodes that really hit the nail on the head for what they were trying to do emotionally. This one did a great job on it. And I think like it would have been even better had the bell still not been vibrating from as many episodes that had rung it previous to this.
I by my count, this is the 10th episode out of 26 of this season where I feel like the primary plot point is 7 of 9 becoming a real girl. And it's just it was too much. It was too much. They were trying to make 7 of 9 a thing, right? And instead of allowing her to be integrated more naturally over time and to earning a place, they tried to force it. And it started to show as they kept jamming it in. But I will say for the finale, they found the right lane to be in. It's just, at this point, I was just kind of over it.
I've got a character flaw that I have to work around frequently, and I think that I'm contrary by nature. If everybody in the room likes hot dogs, I'm the guy that just something in my guts like fuck hot dogs, hamburgers are better. Like and trying to like be I sit here, I'm like, man, fuck all these episodes. I hate Harry Kim episodes, and then as soon as there's no more Harry Kim or no more B'Elanna Torres AI episodes, it's like, well, why am I being forced to watch everything 7 of 9 and Janeway or 7 of 9 and the Doctor? Like, I want to see Tuvok episodes. I want to see Neelix episodes. Like, so I don't know if my biggest gripe through this entire season being the complete sidelining, if not like censorship of these other characters in favor of Seven, is like a legitimate Star Trek concern, or if it's just me being contrary and not wanting what's being presented at the given moment.
I don't think it's me being contrary. Like Tuvok, let's use him as a specific example. I think you can only say that there was one Tuvok episode the entire season, and it was the Kenneth Bewilder's Wild Ride when he goes into his hot grinder alley and he's giving people murder thoughts. Like, that's it. That's the only Tuvok episode for the entire season.
If I was him, I would go to my fucking agent and I would be like, listen, man, you got to get in with Rick Berman and figure out what's going on with me, because I don't know if I'm going to stand through. Look at this entire episode. The only thing I got all season was hot and heavy breathing, touching a dude's face, swapping fucking clip art out of Event Horizon. If I was Tim Russ, I'd be like, maybe Tasha Yar, Denise Crosby wasn't all that crazy. Like, is that the TNG security curse? Like, you just get muscled out of episodes and seasons. You're right though. That is the only real standout moment. I keep wanting to go back to the elevator, lift, but that was last season.
It really was, and I think we'll cut off our discussion here because I feel like we are firmly in RIP territory. But let us say up front, it's another 7 of 9 becomes a real girl with Janeway's help episode, but this is the good one.
This is fucking amazing.
This is good.
What was this fucking last stupid one we did with her being home alone?
One. Yeah.
One. That was a very stomachable piece of garbage between two great episodes, because Demons I still think is really good, and I fucking loved this episode. Hope and Fear, it was like your parents telling you the whole year, like, we're not going to be able to afford a Nintendo 64, so you better just fucking temper your expectations on Christmas because there's not going to be an N64. And then sure enough, you rip that fucking box open, there's an N64.
Oh my god!
Like, this broke so many Voyager shitty writer room rules. Like, don't ever go back to the past. Don't acknowledge anything. Don't ever hold fucking Janeway accountable.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
and I'm over here blowing this episode up front on my knees with both hands because it bookmarks season 4 so well. We spent something stupid like an hour and a half on season 4, episode 1, Scorpion Part 2, just ripping that thing apart for the stupidest fucking decisions and risks that Janeway is willing to make. And the fact that there's a self-acknowledgement and a closure to those glaring flaws is a play that I never would have thought I would have seen out of Voyager.
Yeah, I knew going in how much you were going to love this one because of the last act and the speech that Arturis lays down in front of Janeway. I knew for the last 9 months since we reviewed Scorpion that this moment would come and this glory that would wash over you as a consequence. But you can't oversell how fucking perfect it is. Like, they go there. They go there and they don't even apologize for it. They're
And it's
like,
out of nowhere too. Like
yeah,
the whole premise of this episode is that this message from Starfleet, which showed up back in the Hirogen plot arc, and you're like, okay, well, that's a really solid thing for them to touch into. And then just the last minute reveal of like, no, man, we're going back to the beginning of the season. Like, it's a great first half, and it's a phenomenal twist. Um, Voyager initial premiere was all pre-internet, but I'm curious, what do you remember as being a active Star Trek fan who was consuming this TV show on a weekly format, like, and whatever kind of pre-internet buzz there could have been, whether it was bulletin boards or magazines or whatever, like, did the Scorpion plot arc and Janeway's decision to help the Borg fight off species 8427, like, were people as critical of it as you and I were when we watched it?
People were critical of the treatment of the Borg from the beginning.
Well founded, I would say. Even how this one touches on it was good. So, getting into the episode itself, we begin with a I freeze frame, and I'm like, okay, so we're on the holodeck, and there's some sort of flying disc. It's similar to the lightsaber training droid that Luke trains with. And it's very clear they've just turned the camera upside down, and they're trying to use the floor of the holodeck and make you think it's actually the ceiling. And we are going to get introduced to a ridiculous game that Starfleet plays called Velocity, and it's where you and someone else who you want to play a game with stand across each other in the holodeck with both hands on a Type 2 phaser pointed directly at each other. And the point of the game is to not shoot the person across from you. Instead of shoot like a little coffee saucer.
Right? And to hit the other person with it by like sending it at them by hitting it with the phaser.
I've done a lot of shooting in my life, and just the fucking visual of two people like switch out phasers for pistols and pretend to play this fucking game. It's ridiculous. But it's Janeway, and it's 7-9. Janeway's wearing like a dress and some tights. I don't even remember what Seven's wearing. Seven's got something tight on, but for the first time I don't even notice her outfit, because it looks like her right arm, like someone hit her with a fucking car with the size of this Borg bruise she has.
Yeah, the 7 of 9 has not been seen, I think, without sleeves for the most part. So the level of detail that they tried to go into with the Borg implants on her arms was definitely something new. I guess it's one of the few things they got right on Picard, was that she had the same visible implants on her arms. But yeah, she's in some her normal has to be skin tight something workout clothes, and they're shooting their Glocks at each other, trying to hit each other with a frisbee, and Janeway pulls out a close victory, and of course 7 of 9 acts like a real bitch about it.
Accurate scene recap.
Yeah, that's it. That's what happens.
It quickly devolves into an in-depth examination of what a bad sport 7 is being about this, and Janeway's observation and expression of frustration that things aren't going quite the way she wanted. The scene doesn't really work because, again, we've been through this emotional journey from point A to point B 10 fucking times with 7 of 9, where at the end of each of these 10 episodes she discovers her feelings and her humanity and has a growth moment where the Grinch's heart grows 10 times or whatever, only to completely shrink down by the next time. So the last time we touched on this story, she was well on the road to recovery, and now she's reverted back to this.
It was last week that she was like sacrificing her life for the crew. Last week.
Her fucking life. Like, give me bigger stakes than that. So Janeway butting heads with her. well, okay, we're going to tell this story again for time number 11 or whatever. We lay down some details on where we are actually falling in the voyage. Season 4, if we're going from Scorpion to this point here, from when they brought 7 of 9 onto the ship, it's only been 5 months. And if you take all 26 episodes and break them up over a 5-month time span, you got some real hazard pay opportunity in there, I think.
I after they said it was 9 months, I went ahead and went back through like the roster of episodes to see like what that meant for the one life imperiling space danger per pay period template that we had established for your Starfleet paycheck. And if we discount the 2 Year of Hell episodes, since they didn't happen, they were bottle episodes, we discount the episode where we're, in the far future and dealing with fake evil Voyager simulations. All right, so that's 3 you can knock off the list. That leaves the other 22 episodes as things that happened kind of in time, right?
Yeah.
Of those 23 episodes over 9 months, right? So if we're going to assume that's, 36 weeks, we are above the one peril per pay period level. And some of these were multi-week or multi-month perils, like the Hirogen turning the ship into a giant World War II simulation where they get to murder people over and over again. That went on for months.
Yeah, I was going to say that was a big deal. Man, what a... Fuck the Delta Quadrant, man.
Yeah, fuck the Delta Quadrant. Never go back. Like, that's what they should say when they get there. Like, that place is fucked. Let's never go. Like,
it's a great place to maraud. It's a great place to maraud and pillage, but I wouldn't want to live there. They wrap up the scene on the holodeck with Janeway being firm that she didn't want to keep playing along with 7, and we cut it to Janeway doing some late night work in the mess hall. When Chakotay finds her and tells her it's 5 a.m. I love this scene because she's sitting there with like whatever the desktop display that they have. Like, it's not really a laptop because I don't think that thing necessarily folds down. So it's just this big blocky computer. And I have this funny visual in my head of her deciding that she wants to work in the mess hall and trying to lug this fucking thing around like some big old 1940s typewriter.
Well, she's got to practice her social distancing, work from home stuff, like, I get it,
She's got to stay in shape. She almost lost that fight to 7 of 9. So maybe she's, intentionally lugging that big heavy ass thing around. It's kind of like a physical conditioning. Chakotay tells her that Tom and Neelix are coming back on a supply run in one of the Federation death carts, aka shuttlecraft. That they got a good haul, and that Neelix, who again is serving as ambassador, is wants to bring along someone who's been a real helpy McHelperson as they travel on to the next star system, and they agree. This is when Janeway confides in Chakotay, and it's the only time she confides in Chakotay. That's one of my biggest complaints about this episode, is that I think she stonewalls him from some pretty important stuff in favor of Tuvok.
Yeah, they have the conversation in the briefing room later that felt like it should have been a conversation with Chakotay, but it was Tuvok instead. In fact, Chakotay barely really factors into the episode in any useful way. I mean, he ends up like in charge of Voyager later for a brief time, but like doesn't serve like any functional purpose to the story itself.
Yeah, but nobody does. Paris doesn't. Kim doesn't. I'm really straining myself to think of Torres. Like, this is a good example. This is a good figurehead for the rest of the entire season, because it just boils down to some Doctor, a lot of Janeway, and a lot of 7 and 9, and a lot of whatever the monster of the week ends up being.
No, what are you talking about? Doctor's barely in this one. He's like in one scene.
You know what? You're right. It's just still a heavy influence of one weighing on me. They cut over to the cargo bay where there are racks and racks of 55-gallon drums. my first reaction is there's no way that all that shit fit on a Type 6 shuttlecraft. I don't know what sort of extra dimensional space we're employing here, but this is a silly amount of product that they've brought back. And in all the chaos, we are introduced to a very special guest star, which is Ray Wise. And boy, what a pick for them to carry such an important episode. Ray Wise has I can't even call him that guy. Like, he has been in so much fucking cool shit. I want to run through some of the things you might know him as. Most importantly, as the President of America in the Command and Conquer Red Alert series.
Yes.
Perhaps most famously as Leland Palmer, Laura Palmer's father in Twin Peaks. My personal favorite, Leon Nash. He's one of Clarence Boddickers, who you might remember. God, man, season 4 is just nothing but fucking sweet-ass dudes from RoboCop.
RoboCop, yeah.
Fucking Clarence Boddicker's number one henchman, Leon Nash. And as I've recently learned as digging through his IMDb, he plays Douglas MacArthur in a movie I never heard of, but I am now going to watch, called FDR, American Badass.
I'm sorry, what? What?
FDR, American Badass. I watched the trailer. I skipped around and I saw that there were werewolves attacking people, and they find out that they're Nazi werewolves. And he has a chair with a Gatling gun. I don't know. It looks terrible. I'm gonna watch it. I'm very excited.
I'm excited too. Holy crap! That sounds like amazing bad movie magic. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been in some legit stuff too. I really liked him in Reaper, which is a show nobody fucking watched, but I absolutely adored, from like mid 2000s, where he played the devil. He's like I said, you know who he is if you saw him and heard his voice. I'd say that's that guy.
Significantly, he was in a TNG episode, which was Who Watches the Watchers, and that is the one where there are proto-Vulcans, the Federation observation platform that was watching this pre-Brass society or whatever. Ray Wise plays one of the Vulcan dudes, the proto-Vulcans, who gets in. They break the Prime Directive. It contaminates the entire population, and Riker and Troy, I believe, have to like go under the knife, put on these disguises, and get in there to, I think they had to like rescue Federation scientists or something. I don't know. It's one of those really good.
Yeah, it was the Duck Blind episode. Yeah. And they stole part of that idea to do Insurrection.
Yeah.
The movie.
Spoiler alert. Who Watches the Watchers was way better than Insurrection. So
yes, absolutely. Especially because the ending is Picard just shattering the Prime Directive to solve the problem of like, I'm just going to have to fucking tell you what's going on and then get you to understand it. And then it works. That's the best part of that episode, is the end scene is him with all of these like Bronze Age proto-Vulcans, and they're like, oh, okay, no, we get it. You're from space, and the reason why you never tell people you're here is because like people like us will misinterpret it and act like a bunch of fucking idiots. No, we get it. It's cool. Good luck. You know, we're happy to know that there's like life out there, and maybe you'll come back in a few thousand years. Seems good. Like it works out perfectly.
It's such a good story of hope.
It is. Like
thank God Alex Kurtzman didn't get anywhere near that one. So they got Ray Wise, who has who is awesome and who has done Star Trek before, and they brought him in for a very important role, and he is pretty much the only non-regular cast member that we are going to see, and they have got him in a costume that is unlike anything I have seen in Voyager before. There's no deli meats in his hair because there's no hair. I'm going to describe. Can I describe what this guy looks like?
Please do.
So this is Arturis. Arturis, whatever his species is, looks like if your scrotum was full of lemons. And then someone grabbed the scrotum and like squeezed the lemons all the way to the end, and then just shaved everything off and put a neck and arms and legs under it, and it was just a dude with a huge swollen scrotum for a head. It's grotesque without being scary or silly. I think the makeup really works well. They pack his neck out a little thicker so it looks like it can support all the weight of this head. And it's cool because you can't really see like where the real him is and what's prosthetic. So it looks really uncomfortable. It looks really different.
I disagree a little bit. It is really good look. It's very interesting. It's not just shit in your head. But something they did that I thought I think it was just because I watched it on a, very high def monitor, and so you see all the flaws, right? They didn't do anything to his face, right? Because they wanted his facial expressions to not be caked in by any makeup, right?
Sure.
Because you got a good actor and you want him to be able to use the full range of his emotions. So they didn't have anything in his like eyes, mouth, nose area. And the problem is when they're in a tight shot, like a tight two shot. Arturis definitely went to the school of the Catherine Janeway no personal space university. Like loves going there.
He teaches there.
He teaches there.
He developed a new maneuver we're going to call the Arturis maneuver, whereas you walk up into someone and start talking with your face in their hair.
And because there's so many tight two shots with him in it, you can see the line of where they stopped doing the makeup for the prosthetic they put on his head, and they just kind of like darkened his existing skin color. And it looks like there's no better explanation. He looks like he's got that raccoon look that Donald Trump has. Like Donald Trump's kind of got that weird raccoon thing going, where it's just not quite right around the eyes and mouth and that sort of thing. It's what he's got going.
I can't say I really noticed that past the more important image, which is a giant talking ball sack. He kind of that's on the silly end. On the cool end, it kind of reminded me of the human xenomorph hybrid from Alien Resurrection that like is Ripley's goofy man-child thing roaming around biting people's heads off.
Oh yeah. From Alien, yeah. Like he just has a very uncomfortable, sensual-ish scenes with. Yeah, no, that movie that movie weirded me out, man. Did it weird you out? It made me feel a little uncomfortable.
I always forget that it was David Fincher that did that.
Yeah, and it was an early Joss Whedon script, which is why it had such punchy dialogue. Like, alien movies are not known for having super punchy character dialogue. And then, like, this one's all, like, quippy. It's a very strange film.
It's, speaking to this Alien Resurrection thing, like, I recently went down a YouTube rabbit hole. There is an unprecedented level of cast members across all the Alien franchises who openly speak out as to how bad that movie was, not because it was a bad script, but because the studio interference took what should have been really good and fucked it all up needlessly so. And it's kind of refreshing, especially like Ron Perlman throws some fucking haymakers on that thing.
It is refreshing to hear that when that happens, because you never hear that the shit get thrown.
But it's interesting because, I mean, on paper, you look at all the names that are involved and you're like, how could this not be anything short of amazing? Yet there you had it. I'm sorry, it wasn't Resurrection they were shitting on. It was Alien. No, yeah, it was Resurrection. 3 was the penal colony, right?
Yeah, 3 was some kind of prisonish thing. Yeah,
yeah. It was the penal colony one that they shit on hard, not the 4th one. So, anyways, we get introduced to Arturis, the humanoid ball sack, and we find out that his race, which is what? God, do they?
I don't think he actually names what his race is. We just get the Borg designation at one point. I want to say like species 116.
And their whole thing is that they have these really complicated brains that allow them to pick up languages in their entirety based on only a few phrases. And we will quickly come to find out that this also expands into coding and algorithms. what Janeway had been working on when she was talking to Chakotay was the aforementioned Starfleet hidden carrier signal that was below all of the personal messages that they had communicated through the Hirogen relay network before 7 of 9 blew the whole fucking thing up in an act of insubordination. And through the past 5 months, no one on Voyager has been able to decrypt what that is, and it's like this treasure chest of what if. Maybe there's a wormhole. Maybe there's fantastic new technology. Maybe there's terrible Federation news that could have been about how bad the Dominion War was going, and maybe the Federation was going to tell Voyager, do not come home, it's a lost cause. Who knows? But Janeway has not been able to crack this thing, and I think what's interesting about all that is that 7 of 9, who really seems to be the best choice to say, got all this computer shit, this Borg perfection floating around you, like, don't come out of your bedroom until you've cracked this code yet. They seem to be hesitant to really let her around this thing.
I wonder if, an explanation for that could just be the quantity of bullshit they've had to deal with. I mean, we talked about it at the top of them having surpassed the 1 lethal space hazard per pay period level this 9 months. It's been a rough 9 months. You got crew members being turned into Nazi, play things. You've got crew members getting killed by random radiation no one can see. You've had some problems. They just haven't had a time to sit down and really like hash this one out.
No, they haven't. And even 7 of 9, who was alone for an entire month while they went through the needless radiation field of death, she seemed to have her hands pretty full too. But it crosses Janeway's mind, hey, let's get this Arturis guy who seems to be real whiz-bang with this stuff and give him a crack at breaking this super top secret Federation code. And I get the play she's making here. Like, if he can crack it, it's worth him seeing whatever the secrets could be. But it just had me thinking, like, what is there a certain line in the sand where Janeway would let this guy help her open the signal up and be like, ooh, wish this guy had not seen that. Like, had there been some additional talk about what if the signal was really like, hey, sorry you're stuck out there, but while you're out there, we know about an Omicron particle thing we need you to go clean up in another civilization you have to go hamstring and, condemn to death. If you could go mop that up for us, that would be great.
I would presume that the assumption of Janeway, of course, is that this is just some lone alien that seems very helpful, and he's hitching a ride with us in exchange for helping us out with our trade deals, and he's a nice guy, and he's also kind of by his fuck self, so the chances that he is somehow going to be specifically relevant to the message if he's able to decrypt it is probably 0. So why not let him try? Like, it totally makes sense in the moment of, like, Janeway be like, I don't think there's OPSEC here I gotta worry about. You're just some fucking guy. And I've had this message for months, so I know you didn't fucking send it. I was in a different part of the galaxy then, so fuck it. If you can decrypt this thing, I'll get you a ham sandwich or something.
So here's the bad part.
You'll get to at least avoid our filthy space cat's pasta hair or whatever the fuck you cooked today. We'll get you some good shit.
Here's a bad part of this episode is that that they did not bring in Ray Wise, a very well-known actor, and they did not put him in some of the fanciest, most innovative character makeup that we've ever seen, just for him to be a nice bystander who helps Voyager out in a pickle. Like, there's going to be something more to all this because, we understand the formula at this point. She brings him in. It's her, 7 of 9, and Arturis in, I believe, astrometrics. And he takes a look at this scrambled code and goes, oh, yeah, I can totally clean this up. Give me 5 seconds, and there we go. And we get treated to a message from Starfleet Command. It's Admiral Hayes. Is Admiral Hayes anybody that we know?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So this is a fresh admiral?
I believe this is a completely fresh admiral. Yes,
Who's the one you keep talking about from DS9? Ross?
Admiral Ross. He's a recurring character on that show.
But Admiral Hayes has a very positive message. It's that they have come up with a great solution for the pickle that Voyager finds itself in, and here are some coordinates. And you got to go check them out. And luckily, those coordinates are only 10 light years away. So they lay in a course, they zip over there, and what does Voyager find but a brand spanking new class of Federation starship, which we will later find to be the NX-01A USS Dauntless.
Oh, I just looked it up, by the way. Admiral Hayes is also the admiral that tells Jean-Luc Picard in First Contact with the Borg have arrived. So he showed up in a movie as well.
This guy is just the bearer of bad news all around, because there's going to be a follow-up message we get from him later that is also bad news. So we roll up on this brand new, very interesting hull design. It doesn't really follow traditional Federation design language. Everything appears to be up and up. Just it's an empty ship that's adrift. Now, the message from Admiral Hayes has not been fully decrypted at this point, so they don't really know what to expect, but there's a fair amount of apprehension. Janeway will go on a little speech in a little bit saying that, she's gotten her hopes up before, that an easy trip home has seemed within arm's reach on several occasions now, but none of them have ever worked out. And it was an infuriating moment, because it's like, well, gee, Kathy, why is it that none of the other opportunities haven't exactly worked out? Is because you guys wanted to fucking fiddle around with two dickhead Ferengi rather than flying through the fucking wormhole in the most infuriating, weakest shit ever.
It didn't work out because your professional Starfleet security officers were overpowered by two unarmed Ferengi, who then were able to hijack their own shuttle, which you had secured, which was broken, and that you had secured, but apparently did nothing to prevent them from being able to illegally launch off your ship, and then didn't immediately tractor beam or phaser and out of existence,
or just fucking ignore them and fly through the wormhole.
You know what?
Let me ground myself real quick. I'm getting mad.
Okay,
it's even False Prophets was still better than Picard. So you know what?
Ooh, wow, yeah. You know what? Yeah.
Sure, whatever. Rafi wasn't there, so it wasn't that bad. Whatever. You know what? Hey, that underboob was really good. I loved False Prophets.
Probably 10 out of 10. Best underboob we've seen on Star Trek thus far.
I don't know if that's true. I think there might have been better in one of the holodecks. I'll have to go back and rewatch.
You know what? That's Warren's investigation. Good luck.
Yeah.
Report back give us a full report.
So they start beaming over to go check this Dauntless out, and it's Paris and Tuvok and Kim, I think, maybe.
It was Chakotay, Tuvok, and Paris go over to the ship, and it accidentally turns on while they're there. The ship is laid out in a fashion that's both familiar and unfamiliar. It looks, I guess, a little bit like how they dressed the
Prometheus.
the Prometheus, and it has Elcar's style computers, and has what they eventually call a quantum slipstream drive instead of a warp drive, which is a newfangled form of propulsion that, when it accidentally turns on and is active for just a few moments, it still propels them 15 light years, and it takes Voyager 3 days to catch up with them.
I thought, I didn't have a chance to read the memory alpha for this episode, but I have to think that this is the Prometheus set in a redress. I feel like the bridge and a lot of the set pieces in this really remind me of like Chinese paper lanterns. There's these, not opaque, but like these translucent paper planes that have backlighting behind them. The most interesting thing I thought about the bridge, because they beam in and you're standing where the camera's pointing where the main view screen should be, towards the captain's chair, and then when we cut to the cross shot and see the away team from the other side, like there's no main view screen there. It's just another work screen, and that really set off a red flag in my head. Like, something seems very off. Like the most iconic part of a Federation bridge is absent. But Tuvok starts putting his hands on things, and initially it all looks on the up and up. And like you pointed out, and I'm not really sure why the ship was kind of malfunctioning like this, if that was an intended demonstration of the slipstream drive capabilities or what. But it takes Voyager 2 full days to fly back over to where this thing went so it can pick up the rest of the crew. You know something's wrong. You know something's off.
Well, I don't know if you necessarily know something's wrong because they've given you like a really clear hint. There's a suspicion that something seems to be off because it's too perfect. And that's the point that I think the episode turns on, because I like that Janeway from the beginning was like, this shit is too good. Like, the message turns out to be exactly what we'd want to hear. And there's a ship waiting for us to just take us home with magic space pixie dust, super drive. Like, and this happened to all occur the moment the extremely helpful alien genius showed up. Like, we have been fucked so many times by so many things in this quadrant. It would be stupid for us to not be suspicious. Like, this is too good.
Yeah. And the more time they spend on the ship, the more alien it gets. So you only get to see 2 set pieces, the bridge and the Spencer's gift shop, which we will be calling engineering moving forward. There's no warp core. There's a Spencer's gifts energy plasma ball, and it looks cool. Like, for the same little prop pieces we've seen a million times, like, it's configured neat. There's like the laser red tubes, but they've got like water cooling around it. And nobody on the crew is able to liken any of this technology to anything else. Before they actually get what they believe to be the clear message from Admiral Hayes cleared up, the something's off vibe, I was like, man, this would be a really cool Event Horizon story, in that there is a prototype ship that Starfleet had been working on with amazing drive capabilities, but it's unstable. This thing got out, it shot into the Delta Quadrant, and lucky for Starfleet, Voyager just so happened to be somewhere there, and that the orders that Hayes was giving them was, hey, you got to go blow this fucking thing up before this technology falls in the wrong hands. It's unreliable, but it poses too much of a threat. It was a mistake, and we want you to blow it up. And like the conundrum of Janeway of like, I could get people home, or I could follow orders and play it safe and blow up, basically the next get home from get out of jail free card. But before they really give you too much time to stew on that, Arturis does finish clearing up the message from Hayes, and it's exactly what you said. It's a almost too good to be true. Hayes says that this is the brand new hot newness out of Starfleet R&D, that this thing's going to be able to get them home. It's lean and mean. It's got armaments, but the creature comforts aren't there, like the holodecks. Not a big deal. But then, like, what the fuck? It doesn't have replicators?
I think there's a believability element that makes sense, right? Like, it would be too good if it had everything, but as a bare bones prototype that basically Starfleet put together to specifically send into the Delta Quadrant so that Voyager crew could test it and get home with it, makes sense. Like, I get it. As far as like the trap that Arturis is trying to to set. Like, he doesn't want it to be too good, but he wants it to be good enough that they'll go for it. And that's exactly what Janeway picks up on. It's like the only thing that was missing was chocolates on the pillow, right? Like, the only thing missing is the luxuries on the ship. That's it. That's the only thing wrong with the situation, and that is suspicious, right? That there is a conscientious choice not to have those things on there.
And let me point out at this junction too, this is a very good Janeway episode. Like, yeah, we've rung the 7 and 9 bell so much that I almost kind of discredit anything good going on for her. But Janeway, who is so often written so poorly and so awful, I think this is a really good episode for her to have under her belt.
Yeah, she's really good as the captain in this episode, and it's unfortunate how infrequently we say that.
Yeah, absolutely. The ship of the Dauntless, too, from the exterior does look neat. And also with the Prometheus episode, which was back again along the Hirogen plot. And that's where we initially made first contact with Starfleet. Like, things look similar. Like I said, it's a different design language, but that kind of triangular hull is reminiscent of Prometheus. So it seems like something Starfleet could be working on. I actually thought the ship really reminded me of like Triangle Head from Silent Hill games. And I think that's why it seemed a little bit more evil than perhaps it should.
Yeah, you play Silent Hill enough and triangles will start to definitely mean nothing but like horrific bloody madness to you.
Pain and suffering. They have a senior bridge team meeting where they watch this message from Hayes where he's like, yeah, you got to leave Voyager behind, which sucks, but we're going to get you home lickety split. And Harry Kim, who, you know, we've been in this situation a couple of times now where Kim is always part, and this started all the way back with episode 3 or 4 of season 1, Eye of the Needle. You know, there are the people who are the rampant optimists that want nothing more than get home and will blindly go into any dangerous situation. And interestingly, in this episode, because the first time we encountered this, again, Eye of the Needle, B'Elanna Torres was firmly in the I don't care, I don't want to go home camp. And now we find her...
ambivalent, at least, yeah.
I would say excited. I mean, when Seven confronts her in the Spencer Gifts, main engineering, and says like, look, when you go back, you're a fucking terrorist and you're probably going to go to jail. And she's just like, you know what? I'd rather be in Federation white collar prison than the miserable ass Delta Quadrant.
I mean, that's just realism, right? Like, that's just like, you've been on this ship for 9 months. You see how often we almost get fucking killed out here. Like, I'm ready to go to New Zealand. I'm ready to go to the picturesque New Zealand prison that Tom Paris got sent to. Maybe we'll both get sent back together.
Tom's not really close with his dad, and it seems to me like from his stories that his prison family is more real than his blood family. So, you know, in essence, for me to meet his parents and hang out with his family, I need to be in jail myself. So it's all going to work out fine. We're going to be a happy jail family. The senior bridge crew their meeting wraps up. Harry Kim's all gung-ho about, yeah, I'm going to get to see mommy and my clarinet again, which he doesn't specifically say, but you know what that he's thinking.
Of course.
And after the meeting, and this is kind of the shitty part, Janeway grabs not Chakotay, who should be her confidant, or at least, you know, the operational muscle she's relying on for this. She grabs Tuvok in what seems like a very secret suspicion that all is not as it seems, and that it is too good to be true, and that she wants to move forward very cautiously on exploring the Dauntless.
What follows is a montage of multiple log entries and people working on the ship and people working on the Dauntless, of no one finding anything wrong, of everything seeming on the up and up, nothing to follow up on the suspicions, learning how to operate the ship, trying to see if they could recreate the process of using Slipstream on Voyager, which they wind up fleshing out a little bit. You know, I think appropriately to explain like why they just didn't use it on Voyager, right? Like they talk about how like the design of Voyager isn't really compatible with this like this technology, and it's going to tear the hull apart because it's not built to do this, which isn't something you can necessarily change. So they go through all of that. They have the scene that we talked about where Seven, talks to B'Elanna and then talks to Harry, where she's feeling uncertain about going back to Earth. She is obviously scared of going back to a planet of, lots of people and individuals, and also, being an ex-Borg among humans. And it's reflected in her usual arrogance, and, basically refusing to help, refusing to go back, and wanting it her way, and her way will be best. And she goes back to Janeway and Astrometrics at one point to basically confront her about not wanting to go, and Janeway calls her out. It is a cool scene, I think, where like the tension between them and the way their relationship is developed. This is the sort of kind of like Janeway like drilling down what's really going on here, and then just being like, no, you don't, you're just scared, and you don't know how else to express being scared because you're not used to being scared. So you're just being defiant because you're essentially an emotional child. That's what's up. I get it. And I thought that was really neat.
And again, I feel sad that I have these reservations through all of this, that like, I want to see what's going on with the rest of the crew. Like, they've given me so much 7 of 9 Janeway, 7 of 9 Doctor. Like, I don't care about 7 of 9. I want to see how the rest of the crews react to that. In the Hirogen arc, Message in a Bottle, when they first encounter the Starfleet message home, like, that was such a good episode, seeing how everybody reacts to news of what's going on in Earth, and the Maquis had all been wiped out, and everything else like that. That really drew me in, and it's characters I've been trained to care about for 4 years now. I actually enjoy seeing how excited Kim is, and I wanted to see more of that. And yes, it's a very good exchange between Seven and Janeway, but we've done it 10 times. It feels too much. This is right up to basically the tipping point of the twist of what's going on here. I'm in my mind, I know Ray Wise is something more than just a nice, benevolent space ball sack that's there to help them. And I know there's something sinister about this ship. And I start thinking in my mind, like, man, what if this Ray Wise guy, what if this is that evil psychic fucking tormentor from Persistent of Vision, or one of these other like terrible
right.
god creatures? Like, what a way to fuck with Voyager, and like, hey, here's something that's too good to be true, but like on that scale it would take some real juice. And I was like, man, Persistent of Vision, like that's too good to bring that character back. Like, and if that's too good, and I know that's gonna happen, that's not gonna happen, like what ends up being the truth is like so far left field. That's why it really delighted me, because my mind's just racing, like, what could it be? And what it ends up being surpasses all of my best expectations. 7 goes on to be a real pain in the ass for a majority of this mission. I did notice that when they're arguing in Astrometrics, and I guess Astrometrics was partially built with like Borg tech insights, but I didn't realize like big swaths of the wall in Astrometrics just look like Borg cube. That was actually a really cool set piece that I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, it makes sense given the setup of it being a union of Federation and Borg technology. It's a nice touch.
So Janeway and 7 are arguing in this moment when the computer starts beeping, and Janeway's efforts to decrypt this one portion of the Starfleet message that Arturis had lied and told them was unrecoverable. And what we end up getting is the true message from Admiral Hayes, and it is a big fat, we're all sorry. We got the best minds together to try and figure out how to help you guys out, wormholes, any little thing we could. And in the end of it, everybody here at Starfleet Command apologizes. There's nothing we can do. You guys are stuck. And A+++ reaction acting out of Kate Mulgrew as you
Oh, so
see.
good. So good.
I went back and I watched it 3 or 4 times. I mean, this thing hits her like a fucking a wave in the ocean, just wash over her, this pure defeat and emotion and just tears in the eyes, and she rolls with it for a moment before like the captain part of her snaps back and starts trying to reel it in. And there's in the background you can even see like 7 and 9, who had just been like being a real sea bag to her, like emotion actually hit her as she feels the pain coming off of Kate Mulgrew. And for a TV show that very often just misses emotional beats, I think this one nails it right on the head, and it is awesome, awesome TV.
Well, you said it yourself when you referenced Eye of the Needle. In that episode, it was Janeway and Harry Kim who were the optimists about going home, right? Like that's how they positioned the episode. Was Tuvok and B'Elanna were the doubters, and the captain and Harry were the optimists. And that was also a great moment, with that episode being one of our favorites still to this day, is when the news gets broken to them as to the unlikelihood that their messages got anywhere. It's all in the face of Kate Mulgrew to sell, right? And she nails it there too. Like in the small moments is when she earns her paycheck in a major way. And I remember hearing a lot of interviews with her later on about how hard all the techno, sci-fi stuff was for her to do. But we've said many times, when she's called upon to call on her Ryan's Hope abilities, her soap opera acting, she gets it. And she gets it really well.
I'm going to go ahead and say this might be the best Janeway episode I think we've seen to date.
Resistance was better. That's the one where she's on the planet with the crazy man, and it gets promoted by, like, they promote it by making it sound like she was going to be a hooker the whole time. That's the best Janeway episode.
And if for nothing else, the scene where she finally tells the crazy guy, like, listen, I'm a Starfleet captain. We can't further endanger you. You've done too much. I have to do this suicide mission on my own. Like, yeah, that was really quintessential Starfleet there, but like across a broader spectrum. And I think consistently over this entire episode, I might still have to prefer this one. We had not really talked about what Arturis's ball sack race was all about. 7 of 9 has knowledge of them, and I forget what their number designation was, but
116. But what 7 of 9 says is, like, we haven't ever been able to actually assimilate them.
These guys have always been
a little too slick for us.
Ahead. And this dude seems like real, hey, it's cool. It's almost, I don't want to say skeevian, but it's just like, we got this. We've been doing this a long time, and you got to realize that the Borg are a force of nature, and you work around, and that's life, and we're super smart and advanced, and we deal with it, no big deal. She finds out though that this whole thing is basically a big menagerie, right? And the jig is up. There's that Dauntless was not put there by Starfleet. In all reality, Arturis has been jerking him around, and Janeway's reaction to this is, and I quote, "Let's get weapons," which seems like so anti-24th century Starfleet. Like, let's confront him. Let's get to the bottom of this. Like, but let's go get some fucking guns. Like, so wildly inappropriate, yet at the same time, the weight of the cruelty of the joke that's just been played on him and the rug being pulled out from underneath there, like, that is the human response, no matter what year or what level of enlightenment it is, as long as we're still calling ourselves humans. Like, you fuck someone over that bad, and it's gonna be like, let's go get the guns. Let's get the guns.
Like, I am so done with dealing with these assholes. Let's get some fucking guns.
Let's get the guns. So she gets a rolling crew together. They find out where Arturis currently is, and he is on the bridge of the Dauntless with B'Elanna. At the same time, she completely has Chakotay cut out, right? She doesn't call to tell him, hey, listen, there's a problem. She's like, hey, Tuvok, my suspicions were right. And Tuvok had been in Spencer Gifts with Harry Kim, and they found out that there's like some holographic trickery going
some
on.
bullshit happening, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, let's go jump this motherfucker. Now, we brought up the last time there was really a great opportunity for Voyager to get home, which was false prophets. And you specifically called out the clown shoes motherfuckers that managed to get their asses beat by Ferengi. What if I told you there's 2 worse security crew members on Voyager? They beam on the bridge. They got like 5
6
dudes.
deep. There's 6 deep. There's 4 guys that come with them.
They got mass combat rules down lock, right? You know, like they are not going to lose this fight if Mr. Ballsack wants to get froggy. They all got guns. And they're like, listen, what the fuck is up with this? Like, you are full of shit. You are jerking us around, and this shit is over. Don't move a muscle, by the way, because we got guns. And Ray Wise, Arturis is like, it's not my place. Like, he starts pulling out like more lies. He's like, this Borg bitch, she's trying to fuck you over. She's got like, I wasn't going to say anything, but like, she's been plotting all this shit. She's been fucking with that signal. I really think she wants to do something dirty to you. And Janeway is just kind of like blind trusting that Seven's not bad. And she's like, I'm sure you planted all that evidence, which I think it's cool. They're even giving this guy the credibility that he would have planted dirt on her.
I think she has every reason to believe Seven didn't do that.
Absolutely.
Seven was interested in not going herself, but there was nothing about her actions in that episode that suggested she would try and stop everyone else.
Absolutely. I think it's cool that this guy is so committed to Sparkle Motion at this point that he has backups and contingencies ready to go. Like,
oh yeah,
you establish how good your heroes are by the quality of villains that they encounter, and I think this guy is so top notch across the board that, again, it's why I mention it. But finally, he has like his villainous meltdown where he's like, "All right, fuck all this talking. I want to get my chops on," and he like rips the he rips the con open and like starts trying to go for like this big emergency crank. And then these 2 fucking clowns that Tuvok brought with him from the crappiest security department ever, instead of just stunning this guy with the phasers that they all have, they're like, let's go and try and put hands on this guy who's like way bigger with his big whose balls are much bigger than our own balls. And he slaps him around and finally gets shot by Tuvok, who is normally pretty quick on the trigger, but like Janeway has to like look at him and be like, what are you waiting for, dude? Like, blast this fool.
You looking for a fucking invitation? Do you want to fucking shoot this guy, please?
Motherfucker, do you want to get paid this week? Like, what?
Anytime, buddy.
What's up with this Gandhi shit, man? Like, drop this fool. But he shoots him in the gut one time, which doesn't do anything. And it allows Arturis to pull this crank down. The jig is up. All of the Federation Elcar panels turn an alien red, and we find out that this has really just been a redressed alien vessel the entire time. It encases them in a traditional force field. Harry Kim's like, oh shit, they're trapped. I'm going to start trying pulling people off, starting with the 2 completely fucking worthless security people who should have been assimilated. But everybody gets away except for Janeway and 7 and 9.
The rest of the episode, whatever, right? It's standard fare of 7 and the captain are in prison. They have to do a prison break, and then they have to find a way to...
Yes, it's a prison episode.
Yes.
It's got everything.
But the real magic is a scene coming up. And that is when we finally understand why this villain is doing what he's doing. Because at this point, there's been no indication. None. We know he's shifty. We know this was a trap. We don't know why. They eventually get back to Arturis and are trapped again by him. And he is starting to finally explain what's going on. And he says, I've set my ship to go back to my home planet. and he reveals that his home planet has been assimilated. He is very upset about this, as you might expect. But the reason he's upset is not because that they had been assimilated, but because it's Janeway's fault. And he lays this great speech out of like, yeah, so remember 9 months ago when you decided to make a fucking deal with the Borg to help them beat the Space Mewtwo's? Did you think for 1 second that maybe, just maybe, there were some other sentient species in the Delta Quadrant who are maybe counting on species 8472 to come through for us and beat the Borg so we didn't get turned into fucking space zombies, you dumb bitch? And she tries to defend it of like, I judged that species 8472 is a bigger threat. And in the biggest, best, most scorching burn you could ever possibly hear on this show, Arturis just like immediately snaps back and be like, that wasn't your decision to make. Like, you cost the lives of billions of people when you made that choice. It wasn't yours to make. And my whole race is dead, and all I have left for is revenge, and that revenge was to get all y'all asses assimilated like you deserved. I couldn't get them all, but I'm gonna get you.
My mind is reeling at this point. Like, them playing that this is a direct response to Scorpion Part 2 was so fantastic. Like, the only way to have made this any better in my mind would have been for him to rip the ball sack off of his head and somehow like Seska's face be grafted on the back of his head, and Seska be like, it was me, Janeway, it was me all along. Like, I'm just reeling at how unprecedented this was for Voyager to be that and this dude just nails her to a fucking cross on all the things that we harped on for like an hour and a half. So just fucking phenomenal. And Ray Wise hits all the right marks on his speech, the emotion, the rawness. Like, in my book, everything he's doing is perfectly justified. Janeway tries to play this weak ass, I couldn't have known card. And it's like, you knew goddamn well. Chakotay went toe to toe on you with this and you shut him down. And
it was the only thing the speech was missing was a direct like statement from Arturis of like, yeah, I think you knew what the Borg were. Like, everyone knows what the Borg.
She said they're the devil. Like, the only thing this scene was missing, short of the Seska's triumphant return, would have been like Chakotay standing like, oh shit, well, hey, I don't want to do this right now. It seems like a bad time, but yeah, I fucking told you so.
I mean, like, it was amazing that they had the self-awareness to go back and say this was a very highly questionable decision on the part of the captain. And I suppose if I have a complaint, it's that the rest of the episode goes without comment on Arturis laying the law down. Like, they eventually get out of the circumstance, right? Voyager uses the slipstream drive on Voyager itself, and they've got like a limited amount of time before the hull would get ripped apart. And so they're able to catch up and throw some photon torpedoes at the problem and beam out Seven and Janeway before the ship gets back into Borg space and gets assimilated. At no point at the rest of the episode does Janeway have a moment where she's like, man, yeah, I really did like kill all of those people by making that choice, didn't I? I needed to like keep that shit in mind like as we go, or something. Like, nothing. It doesn't go remarked on. It doesn't seem to phase her, really.
That should have been, there's been a couple moments in Janeway's development where I think there should be stuff that haunts her. Like, you mentioned Resistance before. Like, I think her experiences on that planet really should have tainted her permanently for the rest of the series towards very authoritarian regimes, which she certainly encounters on a regular basis, but there's never the weight of, this kind of emotional.
I experienced firsthand the damage you do to your people, and therefore I'm not going to be party to it anymore.
Yeah. This could have been the moment where she acquired emotional baggage the same vein as Picard. Picard is permanently, God, it's so fucking hard to talk about TNG now with this goddamn Shadow of Picard. Like all the cool what if, all the groundwork they laid down, and any of the comparisons I want to make, like Picard is just the Picard TV series has squandered so much of that. But like TNG Picard just carried this baggage of the terrible fucking things he did as a Borg, as Locutus for the rest of his life. And this would have been the perfect moment for Janeway to have to carry the ramifications of her greedy decision to help the Borg. Like every single person who got assimilated following Scorpion to their blood, their life is on Janeway's hands. And you're exactly right when that falling on deaf ears, not even so much any sort of follow-up commentary or like emotional confiding in Chakotay or Tuvok.
Even Seven of like, that deal I made got you on the ship, but now I realize like the cost it had that I never saw.
Yeah, I was too driven and tunnel vision, and now my eyes have been opened, and oh God, what have I done? I also want to say what this really illuminates what a good move it was in Caretaker Part 1, where when they kill off a bunch of the crew members, the ensign who had picked up Tom Paris initially was a Beta Z. Like,
correct.
Good job killing her off, because if you had Deanna Troi or anybody else that was an empath that would have been able to read this guy and be like, there's some real sinister stuff. Like, I see the hurdle that presents writers, and I understand why stuff like that becomes a poison pill, and it's important to get rid of it. I also become very aware at this point in the episode how much you could do with 45 minutes. Like, this seemed like a 2-hour episode to me. For them to completely put 2 full stories, not only like a mystery ship episode bottled up to like a really potent follow-up to Scorpion. Like, if you play your cards right and build these episodes out the right way, you can cover so much ground. It's crazy. They cover more ground in this one episode than they did in fucking 6 or 7 of Picard. Like, hats. Who wrote this thing?
Who wrote this? Who gets the good
Brand Braga and Joe Manowski. Like, story by even Berman got directly involved in this one. Like, all 3 of these guys, like, good fucking job. Good job on the pacing. Good job on the directing.
Berman wrote this one? Jeez.
Berman,
wow.
Braga, and Manowski. Yeah. Like you said, eventually Voyager gets the fucking slipstream shit to work, which shouldn't work, but it does work. Flies in. For whatever reason, Chakotay decides to only beam Janeway and Seven off. They leave Arturis for some fucking reason. And he is left on a suicide run that takes him back to his homeworld, where there's like 3 Borg cubes just chilling out, which would be a huge, big fucking deal if it wasn't for Scorpion Part 1, where we found out that like you could have 50 on screen at the same time and it's no big deal. Whatever. And he just kind of has a real stiff upper lip as he meets his fate and gets some nanoprobes in his neck.
There's a finisher scene where they're playing Glock Ultimate Frisbee with each other at the end, which, whatever, kind of wraps up, once again, 7 of 9 being a real girl, but it's fine. It's fine. The real part of this episode that's the winner is Arturis laying that shit down at
Janeway's a war criminal.
Janeway killed billions, and that's a thing. Oh, and I looked up after you mentioned that Berman wrote on this. He's only a writer on 8 Voyager episodes, and this is his first one since the pilot. So he co-writes with Brad Braga on 8 total episodes, and Caretaker is the first one, then Hope and Fear is the second. And I'm looking at the other ones he's involved with, and a lot of them are really good. So
I'm curious if there was a sentiment somewhere in the writer production staff that like realized how absurd the decision was to have Janeway ally herself with the Borg and the crazy ramifications. And if this episode is kind of like an expression of like, because we talked about before, you don't contradict what your boss says in Hollywood. If you want to keep your job, you just go along. And that's what creates this echo chamber, which results in stuff like Discovery and Picard and by the time they realize they're going the wrong direction, it's too late. You know, they're at the end of the line. If this was like the Trek purist or the voices of reason that were the quieter voices finally getting a chance to roar up and say like, yeah, that was a mistake. Great episode. Great twist ending. Easily one of the best Voyagers that I think we've had a chance to watch to date, and really shows what the potential could have been for this show. A+. And also too, I mean, this being a season finale, like, and not being a cliffhanger, like, holy shit, that's pretty rare at this stage of Trek not to.
Yeah, it definitely was a rarity. I think the season 1 finale was not a cliffhanger.
It was terrible. It was fucking Space Friendship is Magic. That was
correct.
The one where Police Academy with Tuvok. What a long way the show has come from a complete fucking dud season finale to something like this. Like, my hat's off, man.
And what are we watching once we return to normal episodes?
All right, from here we are going to season 5, episode 1, Night. We got Tuvok. We've got a very different looking Robert Duncan McNeil. I don't know what's going on with him, but he looks noticeably different. And we got Harry Kim. Crew morale hits an all-time low when Voyager must spend 2 years crossing an expanse devoid of any star systems or signs of life. I like space madness. I like consequences. And I am very curious to see what that episode is going to be about. And I am thankful that we are not going to have to wait a couple months to get to it.
Agreed, sir. Agreed. And again, everyone, thanks for tuning in to all of our episodes through our review of Season 4. We look forward to seeing you next week when we do our Season 4 rip. We'll hand out our end-of-season awards, best episode, worst episode, weakest shit. I'm going to go with best and worst alien looks. We'll have other awards to give, both sarcastic and serious.
Got any ideas that you want us to grade on? Feel free to jump on the Trauma Support Group and let your preferences be known. We're always happy to take fan submissions.
100%. And then, of course, you can expect us to give us our final thoughts on Picard, and they will be final. I assure you of that. Until then, everybody, see ya.